Liverpool make their move, but Newcastle United reject their opening offer worth over £110 million for Alexander Isak. The Premier League champions are gearing up to go again as Newcastle brace themselves for a second bid. Yeah, welcome along to the transfer show. The Isak story is fast becoming a saga. Mark McAdam and Michael Bridge are with me to bring you the very latest. Plus, we'll be joined in the studio by former Hull City Executive Chair Paul Duffy. Manchester United want a number 9, but are they also looking for a number 1? The latest on their interest in Gianluigi Donnarumma. Welcome along, but there is only one place to start. It is fast becoming the saga of the summer. His name, of course, is Alexander Isak. Mark McAdam, who is just getting his mic ready there, primed and ready.
That's the worst start to a show I've ever had in my life.
I did try and delay. Did you notice?
Yeah, I did notice that. Yeah. Sorry, it's my fault.
Look, big day of developments.
Start again.
Big day of developments with Alexander Isak. Where do we stand right now?
Newcastle fans, Liverpool fans, and breathe. It's been one of those days, and it feels like it's been one of those days every day for the last couple of weeks or so. More developments today, and significant developments as well. Not just interest, not informal offers, not communication between the two clubs. There has been an offer rejected by Newcastle from Liverpool for the striker Alexander Isak. It was worth, we understand, 110 million plus add-ons. So it was a significant starting point for any possible negotiation between the two clubs for a player that is very highly rated. Newcastle value him at £150 million. But where do we go from now? And it feels like with everything that's happened over the course of this summer, the noises that are being made from both sides of the fence, that this is something that will rumble on and on and on. At the minute, Eddie Howe is with his squad in Asia for their pre-season tour, whereas Alexander Isak, who didn't travel to Asia with the squad, is in Spain training at Real Sociedad, one of his former clubs, with his own team. And, you know, you have to look at this situation and think this automatically feels like a saga. You look at it and you think this is all a little bit bizarre. Things aren't quite the way you'd expect them to be. I think the key situation here is that this potential deal would be a Premier League record, which gives you an indication that these things don't happen overnight. Huge sums of money at play here. But one thing that's really important to point out is that if, for example, Liverpool were to bid, just say 200 million for Isak, and Newcastle said, OK, yeah, we accept that, doesn't mean the deal gets done, because any potential deal will be subject to Newcastle United getting in what they feel is a top-class, Champions League ready, world-class striker. That is the caveat to any potential deal should Liverpool pay what Newcastle are looking for. So there's a long way to go.
Is there not a danger then that if they don't accept it, regardless of whether they've got a replacement or not, of course they want to bring in someone if Isak goes, that they might not get this money again?
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, they could be looking at this financially, saying this is the kind of money we're never going to get again. However, Alexander Isak could stay at Newcastle, he could sign a new contract, he could stay, and then he's still got 3 years left as things stand. He could be there this time next year, he could have scored another 30 plus goals in the season, and his value will still be in excess of 100 million because he's been brilliant. And that's another scenario. And I think this is the most difficult thing. There is not one single person, whether it be Arne Slot, Eddie Howe, Dharmesh Sheth, Michael Bridge and Mark McAdam, that could sit here and say, this is how this is going to unfold, because no one, even the big players at the table, do not know in which direction this is going to go. But the key thing is Newcastle and Eddie Howe will want to go into the season knowing that they have got a more than capable squad of challenging top 4 Premier League, get to the latter stages of the Champions League, win another piece of silverware, and that means good quality players going in, and that's where the challenge lies. But they are in the market to sign more players.
Yeah, and they are, and they were in for Benjamin Sesko. Of course, they're still in for Benjamin Sesko from RB Leipzig. Manchester United are pursuing him as well. Over the week, the noises we're getting there is that Sesko might prefer a move to Old Trafford over St James's Park, but again, it's going to depend on the financials. Brentford forward Johan Wissa He's another one. That one, you talk about Isak becoming a saga. This one is getting a bit unsavoury, isn't it? He has no intention of playing for Brentford again, is what we're being told. And he is desperate to join Newcastle United. Look, I was watching the 5 o'clock transfer show with you two guys. Mark McAdam was making a really good point there about Newcastle fans saying that this was going to be the summer where they've just got their first piece of silverware in years. They're in the Champions League. They're going to go big in the transfer market. So, Michael, how frustrating is it for Newcastle United, for their fans, richest club in the world, and yet they can't actually physically go out and spend the money that they'd want to?
Yeah, I mean, look, we know about these PSR constraints. I think the thing is in Newcastle, from the takeover onwards, is that they've jumped in the fast lane and it's been good. And recruitment-wise, they've got it pretty much bang on every time. Let's start with Kieran Trippier. He brought a bit of leadership to that squad, and he's been a captain there for some time. Bruno Guimaraes, one of the best midfielders in the Premier League. OK, Sandro Tonali had a ban, which we know about. Top quality midfielder. I think their midfield's probably one of the best in the Premier League. They've spent very well. Anthony Gordon. But now they've hit this brick wall. Now, what interests me as well, we talk about replacing Isak. I think in an ideal world, Eddie Howe would like Isak and someone, because we have got the new European format, the Champions League, the Europa League. These are relentless, non-stop games. And you saw clubs come up short last season because the fixtures were too much. That, I'm sure Eddie Howe wants to build on it with Isak, not without him. So it's a saga indeed. But you mentioned players there, and we mentioned Ollie Watkins at 5 o'clock about being a potential replacement. I'd imagine that would be in a saga in itself, because Aston Villa are ultra ambitious for next season as well.
Yeah, do you know something? I feel really sorry for Newcastle in so many ways, because this is absolutely not the way they would have planned this window to unfold. They were sort of set back straight away with the departure of Paul Mitchell. So the people at the top of the club doing all of the deals at the moment are picking up things literally last minute. Now, most sporting directors, Dharmesh, and you'd be able to quantify this, will have a plan in place probably in February and March with how we want to attack the summer.
Even earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. This is what we want to do. By the end of May, we're going to do this. We're going to go and get these 2 or 3 targets in nice and early. We're going to go and make sure this has happened. We're going to sell this person, sell that person. And all of that work is done for weeks and months in advance. But at the end of May, middle of June, they were left without a sporting director. So they've got Eddie Howe, who's taken on the reins to try and help out as best he can. You've got Steve Nixon, who's been at the club a long time, and you've got Andy Howe. Andy Howe has been responsible for some of the best business that Newcastle United have done, but he doesn't have a lot of experience at the top end of negotiating deals. Although he's negotiated deals himself, he's sold players himself, he's scouted players himself and targeted them, he's trying to pick up the pieces of what's been going on. And I know a lot of players that they've targeted over the course of this summer, they've missed out on. Is that because they're going for the wrong players? No. They're competing with the top-end teams to try and get the very best players. Is it their fault that they've gone and joined Real Madrid or Liverpool or Chelsea, or they've gone elsewhere for more money? No. Liverpool can offer bigger money. Manchester United can offer more money. So Newcastle have to just go, this is what we can afford, this is where we can go, this is what we need to do. So therefore they can only work to the budget that they've got in the position and the pecking order of the Premier League table and the financial table. So they're actually trying to do the best they can and just coming up against dead walls all the time. And that's where I feel frustrated for them. The structure is good there. They just need a little bit of luck.
Do you think there's a possibility? There's 2 transfers I remember. Luka Modric, Spurs to Chelsea. Spurs said, you're never going there, right? Wasn't happy, but he stayed another year, joined Real Madrid. Harry Kane, Man City, not happening this summer, didn't happen, went to Bayern Munich. Do you envisage maybe Isak potentially staying one more season, then going a year later, Newcastle sort themselves out in terms of replacements? Or you think it's gone beyond that now?
Well, ultimately, Eddie Howe's stance will be, I want Alexander Isak to stay. And I believe you can be a huge part of this team moving forward this season. There has been a lot that's happened over the last 2 weeks. Alexander Isak is in Spain. The fans know what's going on. The fans know that he's asked to explore any potential opportunities to depart Newcastle United this summer. So there has got to be a lot of bridges built between him, the fan base, the management, his teammates, and he, to perform at his very best, has to be happy and comfortable in himself in this situation. So whilst At the minute, he's a Newcastle United player. They're back from Asia on Monday. He's got to get his head on playing for Eddie Howe and training well and being ready on Monday to be a part of that squad, regardless of what happens with any potential offer from Liverpool if a second one was to come.
Mark, a lot can change in a transfer window. We on this transfer show 3 weeks ago were talking about Newcastle United bidding for Hugo Ekitike. And the Newcastle fan base were getting very excited. It was dream scenario number one. Hugo Ekitike and Alexander Isak playing up front for Newcastle. Then when Liverpool came in, it was the second best scenario, whereby Alexander Isak will stay because we know Hugo Ekitike has gone to Liverpool. The worst case scenario they were talking about was Hugo Ekitike doesn't come and Alexander Isak still leaves. There is that possibility that can still happen, but by the same token, a lot can change in the remainder of this transfer window, can't it? If they can press play potentially on one of their prime targets, then the face of the transfer window changes again, doesn't it?
One transfer, one phone call, one moment can completely transform the whole summer. The optics right now for Newcastle fans is this has been the worst summer in the history. And 3 months ago, it was the best season ever. And that's how quickly things can change. We know that they're interested, as you've said, upon Benjamin Sesko. It's another player that is of interest. Difficult deal to get done, an expensive deal to get done. We know that they're interested in Johan Wissa. One or two things just slotting into place, and suddenly the whole situation can look completely different. And that's why working in transfers can be so difficult, because we could sit here with information right now, we can walk off there at 8 o'clock and the whole story's completely changed. And you have to be almost you have to almost pre-plan, or what's the word? You have to guess what's going to happen next. Because preempting it, that's it. Thank you very much to the producer in my ear. Because you never quite know what's going to happen and what direction it's going to take. And this is what makes it so frustrating for fans, because you think we're getting Hugo Ekitike brilliant, and suddenly you've lost out on him. You think Alexander Isak's going to stay, and suddenly there's still more interest. And therefore, it makes it really difficult for us to predict what's going to happen, because you feel like you're always chasing shadows and you're always one step behind.
So on the one side, Newcastle United, it feels like, as you said, potentially a really nightmare scenario for them. It's not the same from a Liverpool perspective, is it? This is turning into one of the most extraordinary windows from a club that we've ever seen. They've already spent close to £300 million. If, it's a big if, Isak was to come, it will take the spending past Chelsea's record outlay back in 2023, which was around £435 million. That's if Newcastle United get the £150 million that they would want if Isak was to go. So from Liverpool's perspective, it's looking pretty rosy, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. But it's a confirmation that this is now Arne Slot's team. Because at the end of last season, you had Liverpool won the league. It was with Jurgen Klopp's squad, which I always found a bit unfair, because no one predicted Liverpool to win the league last season. I didn't see many. But then all of a sudden, the pressure will be on because of what they've spent. But it looks like they've spent it ever so well. You just wonder, I don't see Liverpool walking away from this, do you? I don't see Liverpool walking away because of one bid being rejected. That would surprise me. I know there have been reports out there, but that would surprise me. But looking at them now, that's looking more and more like Arne Slot's team. I'm sure many are excited to see. I mean, I know you know Milos Kerkez very well. That's someone who would, walk into that side, would battle with Andy Robertson potentially. Florian Wirtz, everyone's excited to see that. That's a huge transfer fee. But that confirms that this is Arne Slot's team now, doesn't it, when this season kicks off?
What it shows to me is that there has been really structured, targeted, clear business. Liverpool knew exactly what they wanted to do at the start of this window, and they've gone out and got it done, so that Arne Slot walks in virtually on the first day of pre-season and he knows the squad he's got to work with. There'd be probably a striker and a centre-back to go into that squad, and that'll be their business done. And there still could be some quite heavy departures. A lot of talk about Harvey Elliott, a lot of talk about Darwin Núñez as well, so there could be more. We mentioned earlier on Sky Sports News Tyler Morton as well. Big conversations happening between Liverpool and Lyon over the course of this weekend. That would be 15 million, another 15 million, 100% PSR profitable, so therefore more money in the bank with regards to their finances and their accounts. So this is a team that have been really organised and structured. They have executed this window so far to perfection. They still have so much headroom with regards to PSR, so they are sat in a very comfortable position, and they've built a team that arguably could be the team to beat for the next 2, 3, 4 or 5 Premier League campaigns.
Fantastic stuff. Just before we go to a break, a quick transfer line to bring you, and it concerns the Nottingham Forest goalkeeper, Matt Turner. He has moved on a permanent transfer to the French club Lyon. The fee, we believe, is around £6.5 million. Remember, he was on loan at Crystal Palace last season, former Arsenal keeper as well. So Matt Turner has made a permanent move from Nottingham Forest to Lyon. Up next, Tottenham close in on a midfielder. The latest on Manchester United's interest in Gianluigi Donnarumma. And we've been talking about Newcastle United. There's more Sunderland spending.
And reports in Germany that he's passed the medical. Now, there is an option to make this deal permanent of just over £20 million with add-ons. There was talks between the two clubs yesterday just about a straight loan. I think Bayern like putting options in. Of course, we had this with Spurs and Bayern Munich last January with Matisse Tell. Spurs did end up exercising that option, but Spurs have been looking for a number 6. That's sort of a modern position name, isn't it now, number 6? But what Spurs did lack last season was someone who can tackle in that midfield. Pierre-Emile Højbjerg going to Marseille, of course. Palhinha will give that, and it's a player Thomas Frank wanted very early on, so that would be a good move for Spurs.
Yeah, and just one other line to bring you from Spurs, and it's news of a departure, just a temporary departure though, and that is the highly rated Mikey Moore. He's joined Rangers on a season-long loan, still a massive part of Spurs' future, you would think, because there's no option to buy in this one. He actually turns 18 in around 10 days' time, I think, and he's expected to sign a new Spurs contract. So Mikey Moore going to be spending the season at Rangers. Let's go from Tottenham Hotspur, Mark, to Manchester United. They need to sell players, clearly, and they've made that very, very clear, but they want a number 9 as well. Who are they looking at?
Yeah, a couple of names on the list right at the top of it. Benjamin Sesko, a player that is wanted by Newcastle United as well. Manchester United very much in the market for him. It's funny, a couple of years ago, he was on the radar of Real Madrid. He stayed within the Red Bull group, going from Salzburg to Leipzig. He's been watched by Premier League clubs since he was a teenager, really. And it feels like now this is the summer where he is available and potentially available for Premier League sides. It's an expensive deal to make happen, but we know that Manchester United are interested in the 22-year-old. They're also interested in Ollie Watkins as well, but that deal potentially could be quite difficult because of Aston Villa's stance and reluctance to sell a key member of their first team. So, yeah, they are in the market for a number 9. I should imagine they'll get one, but what it looks like at this stage, we're not quite sure. But those are 2 players that are definitely very much on their radar.
Yeah, and it's interesting as well because this one has been driven by their recruitment director, Christopher Vivell, who was actually the Red Bull scout at Red Bull Salzburg, and he brought him Sesko in as a 16-year-old. Just a couple of other lines with regard to Manchester United and the latest on Jadon Sancho. Borussia Dortmund remain interested in signing him. He, of course, joined United from Dortmund back in 2021, went on loan back to Dortmund for the second half of the 2023-24 season. Performed pretty well as well, didn't he? Got him to the Champions League final. Sky Germany are also reporting that he may be prepared to take a wage cut because that was a bit of an issue when Chelsea decided not to take up the obligation to buy him at the end of last season. Now, might be some other players who could be on their way in at United as well, Michael.
Yeah, this is one we were given yesterday. Now, we must stress this is just interest now. Gianluigi Donnarumma from PSG, the PSG Champions League winning goalkeeper. Now, why is there interest? Well, he's in the final year of his contract at PSG and they're signing a new goalkeeper, Lille's Lucas Chevrolet. But we are told there's a possibility he might stay and challenge for that spot as well. But look, looking at what United have had over the last couple of seasons, if that was to happen, that would be a huge, huge signing for Ruben Amorim, wouldn't it, Donnarumma?
Well, it's the type of player that Manchester United fans want to be associated with. Champions League winner, someone that's coming for a big club. This rebuild over the course of this summer with the Ruben Amorim fingerprint of DNA on that team. And you get the feeling that a player like that, along with Cunha and Bomo, and then someone like Sesko, that would be the type of summer that Manchester United fans would say, this is where we feel like we're back to being what we are. Now we need to start seeing it on the pitch. But in the window, they're certainly making all the right noises.
OK, let's rattle through a number of the other clubs. We've been covering Arsenal's interest in a certain Eberechi Eze from Crystal Palace all this week. Where do we stand on that one now, Mark?
Yeah, still no formal club-to-club contact at this stage, but we know that Eberechi Eze has a release clause, which we understand to be 60 million plus 8 million in add-ons. However, it's just a case of who wants to trigger that and pay that in its current terms. Now, the terms will probably be quite strict with regards to the payment structure and the way that the buying club has to do this. So it'd be interesting to keep an eye on. We know that Mikel Arteta is keen on the player, likes Eze. He's just had a fantastic campaign. He's been one of those players who's been sensational since he's come in from Queen's Park Rangers. Is this the summer where he gets that big money move? One to keep an eye on. Yeah, conflicting reports on this release clause, actually, because a few reports suggesting his release clause actually expires today. OK. Where there's other reports saying that there is an expiration date, but it's not necessarily today. And I think sometimes clubs like to negotiate on a release clause anyway. They sometimes might want to pay a bit more than the release clause in return for more favourable payment terms. So I think it's definitely one to keep an eye on, Eberechi, as we get towards the end of this transfer window. As much as Crystal Palace will not want to see him go, there is definitely an interest there from Arsenal. Michael, we were talking about Newcastle United earlier on and the struggles they're having in the window. It's probably been exacerbated by the fact that their big, bitter rivals in Sunderland, who've just come up from the Championship, are spending big.
Yeah. I'm still getting the shivers from the words release clauses from another transfer from a few weeks ago. But yes, Sunderland fans, you're excited, and with every reason, because you're going for it. And you've signed Robin Roofs on a 5-year deal, Dutch international goalkeeper, £9 million plus 2.5 million in add-ons. Would you like to hear from him now? Of course you do.
That feels really good. For me, it's really a dream come true to play in the Premier League, to be at such a big club with such a big history. So I'm really happy.
For the fans that may not know too much about you, how would you describe yourself as a goalkeeper? Because as we know, it's quite a maverick position. What would you say to that?
I would say I like to play aggressive, so come off my line, come with crosses. I like to play with the ball, and I think I'm trying to be calm always, so hopefully they will see this.
Yes, Sunderland, one of the 3 promoted clubs alongside Leeds United and Burnley, who are doing business as well. But quick question, I'm going to put you guys on the spot here. The last 2 seasons, the 3 promoted clubs have gone straight back down. Do you think that all 3 promoted clubs will go straight back down again this season?
No. 2 words, Granit Xhaka.
So you think Sunderland stay up?
Yes.
All right.
Go on.
No, I agree. You literally took the words out of my mouth. I wouldn't have done it with the same style and panache that you did. But
different.
No, I like Sunderland. I watched them quite a number of times last season in the Championship. I was at Wembley when they got promoted. And I think when you've got youthful energy and pace out wide and a no-fear attitude, and then someone in that dressing room with over 200 Premier League appearances that can just knit it all together, I think they've got the best chance. And I think the 3 teams that have come up have got a lot more about them, a lot more quality than perhaps teams of previous years. It will still be a mammoth task to stay up, and the statistics show that. But I think if anyone can do it, it will be Sunderland.
Well, we've got that on record now, so let's see if you're right. We'll play it back.
And Burnley and Leeds. Like your boat.
No one's going down.
No one.
Just one other line to bring you, and it's an interesting one, actually, because it concerns Sol Sidibe.
Joined Wrexham, the Wrexham project, a couple of weeks ago, and Dino was my first signing. And it's nice because at Wrexham, he's got Steve Parkin, who was first-team coach at Hull City, and Phil Parkinson, who was the manager at Hull before Phil. So it's a really nice... Sometimes things are very circular and self-healing.
Fantastic way to finish. Paul, thank you so much for your time and your insights. Michael, Mark, terrific again. Up next, it's that man, it's that saga, the latest on Alexander Isak's future at Newcastle United. Stay with us.
Right, we've got some more breaking transfer news to bring you because Leicester City have accepted a bid worth £2 million from Wrexham for defender Connor Cody. He's due in Wales today for a medical and to discuss personal terms. Let's get back to our Isak chat, though. I just want to get the players' perspective from you, Jay, and also whether you think it's going to happen. I mean, what's going through his head right now to go back to his old club and train there by himself? It's not a great look, is it? And what do you think is going to be the end result of all this? Do you think he will get the move he wants?
Well, first of all, I said it at the end of last season. He already had his head turned, and that's just the nature of the game now. Obviously, I can't confirm that, but knowing the way football goes, when you've been that successful, his agent will be doing his job, which is speaking to other teams to see if they're going to put in that, if their interest. Now, he won the League Cup, which was great with Newcastle. He had a few great seasons. He's arguably the best number 9 in the world. And inevitably, the best players in the world want to play at the biggest clubs in the world and challenging. And when you look at Liverpool, who has been reported want to sign him, they have made some unbelievable signings this year, and they are legitimate title contenders straight away again, and Champions League contenders straight away. I do think that he was very professional last year, but then I think that the way
is a bit strange.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like Eddie Howe didn't handle this the best way, which is, first of all, we said there's an injury, then it was his head's not right. And then they've obviously gone away. Then there was a transfer request. That came because obviously he's upset with the way the situation was handled. I think Eddie Howe should have just kept him with the squad. It probably could have maybe enticed him to stay a bit more, but now I feel like the transfer is going to happen. From when you give in a transfer request, you've pushed a move. I feel like it will happen now.
I just want to touch on if he does make it to Liverpool, what their potential strongest 11 could look like. As you mentioned, the kind of window that they've had. And if Alexander Isak arrives, you're going to end up, Dan, having Isak and Salah, 2 top scorers in the Premier League, playing together. Florian Wirtz, who they've just broken the bank.
That's a new Galacticos.
Well, basically, yeah. I mean, when you look at that squad, I mean, it's frightening.
Yeah, absolutely.
They've got to be the heavy favourites, haven't they, to win the Premier League, if you look at that squad?
Absolutely, and I think,
100%.
first of all, you have to give Arne Slot so much credit and his Liverpool side to achieve what they did last season without making any significant signings, because that has allowed, as well as their sales, that spree. And you look at that front three, for example, Mohamed Salah, Alexander Isak, to the best goal scorers last season in one team, with Hugo Ekitike, who has still so much to improve in his game. You have 3 forwards there, completely different parts of their careers, you would say, probably, which, if you're Slot, you must be incredibly, as well as the fan base, incredibly excited.
But Dan, also, like you said there, one thing I love about Liverpool's business is they've signed starters. Yeah. Right, most teams will sign, players that can fit into the squad. Yeah. Players that are going to come and improve, the depth and whatnot. Arsenal's done that. Man City's done that to a point. But you look at that Liverpool team, they have legitimately gone and signed starters. Kirk has had an unbelievable season. He's one of the best left backs out there now. Frimpong, he had a great season in Germany, loads of assists. And then obviously Isak, Ekitike, again, like top players. Like they've gone in there and made their starting 11 stronger. So, they won the league last year. They've made their starting 11 even stronger, which, gives you all that depth as well for the Champions League, for all competitions. Yeah. So, I mean, that's amazing. Yeah. They've got an amazing team.
They have it. They say the Galacticos. We'll have to come up with another word for them, won't we? Right, we've got loads more still to come on Good Morning Transfers. We've got some new developments on Tottenham's pursuit of João Paulinho. Stay with us. Breaking news all over the place this morning. Tottenham have agreed a deal with Bayern Munich for the loan signing of João Paulinho. Spurs will also have the option to buy the midfielder for £27 million Initially, this was expected to be just a straight loan, but it's believed that Bayern inserted the purchase option in fresh talks late yesterday. A loan deal will give Spurs flexibility to spend funds elsewhere this summer. So João signing for Spurs.
I really like it. And it's exactly what they need. They need that experience. You know, he's very good at, interceptions, making tackles. He's very disciplined. And I feel like the way Thomas Frank will have his team playing, which is attacking football, they've got some really good attacking options. You need that kind of pivot in front of the back four where he can get hold of the ball and start distributing it like that quarterback, but then also he has that discipline to stay back, recognise when when he can get forward, but when he needs to be there just to keep it solid. So I think it's a great signing. It's exactly what Tottenham need, and even then Tottenham, I think defensively they're very good, and then you add him to it. I think it's a great signing.
I think when you look at Thomas Frank's Brentford teams in midfield, there was always that physical attribute in that midfield, Norgard, for example. And I think João Palhinha really adds that to that Spurs midfield. I think for Palhinha himself, I mean, first of all, I think the option for Spurs of 27 million is fantastic when you consider Bayern Munich bought him for just over £40 million in that region. But for Palhinha himself, he did have a muscle injury last year, so that limited him to only a handful or, 13 or so Bundesliga appearances. So he wasn't really able to make a stamp on that Bayern Munich team. So you kind of have a player there who needs to regain some confidence there as well. So it feels like a great kind of deal for both parties, really. A player that can regain some confidence in himself, but also Tottenham with a completely different midfielder.
Does he come straight into the starting lineup, Palhinha, right? He comes in as your holding midfielder.
I would say so. I mean, we look at Tottenham last year, and yes, they didn't have a great season at all, even though they won something. But you look at Sarr and Basuma, as much as they are good players, especially, Sarr's very energetic, box to box.
Screamer the other day, didn't he, against Arsenal?
Let's not talk about that. But Basuma, again, very good on the ball, composed. But they were rash at times, giving away needless penalties, making needless fouls. I feel like when you look at Palhinha, he's more disciplined, he's more intelligent, he manoeuvres himself away around the pitch and makes a good decision, 8-9 times out of 10. So again, great signing.
Does he give them a bit of bite as well? He's quite a niggly guy.
He's big as well, He's
Absolutely.
big. He's
He
big.
can score headers from corners.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think this is what Tottenham need also when you consider they're, of course, playing Champions League football next season. So this is a player, I think, that elevates that midfield and offers Thomas Frank something completely different in midfield.
100% done.
Right, reminder of the breaking transfer news. Tottenham have agreed a deal to sign Bayern Munich's João Palhinha, and it also includes an option to buy for £27 million. We've got